In this section, the authors make a very optimistic argument about the role of social media in nurturing and promoting democracy. And in particular, they talk about several instances where Facebook, Twitter, and other online media have played a very active role in social protests in a variety of countries against various forms of oppression and abuse. But I guess what I want to do here is just to raise a note of caution here. I think that it's possible that sometimes we uncritically glorify these new technologies and assume that they're a magic bullet for all of our social ills. For instance, with the instance of the example of the Arab Spring protests, yes, it is clear that in countries like Egypt and Tunisia, Facebook and other social media were a means for protesters to organize and make their demands known. But what happened as a result of those Arab Spring protests? Yes, we had a number of authoritarian governments that were thrown out of office, but what have they been replaced with? In many instances, other authoritarian or extremist governments that are similarly oppressive. So I guess all I'm saying is that we need to be careful of suggesting that technology can just solve these problems, and that there are other issues involved here, such as what system of education do we have in these countries? What culture do we have for political participation? The other example that the authors give is the Occupy Wall Street movement a couple of years back, where you had this social group, this protest group challenging the growing inequality between the top 1% in our society and everybody else. And yes, there was a lot of buzz about Occupy Wall Street, but was there any lasting change that resulted from it? A few years later, I'm not sure there really is. We haven't seen Occupy Wall Street affect any meaningful change to our political system. So again, when we're talking about political change, I think technology and new media is a part of it, but there are other things involved here. The role of political parties, the role of government, and so on. So I guess all I'm suggesting is that when we're talking about what role social media plays in democracy, we need to think about all of the factors that are in play in terms of a democratic society, and all of the factors that may play a part in affecting social change. This section raises some really interesting questions about the changing nature of the internet over time, and our own changing relationship with the internet and how we use online media. The authors point out there's been a real significant change in terms of how Apple makes its money and its revenue. That initially most of its revenue came from selling traditional personal computers, but increasingly Apple makes much more money from selling devices like iPhones, iPads, and iPods. And in fact, it makes 5 times as much money from those devices than it does selling conventional PCs. We've also seen the explosive success and growth of social media, Facebook. What's interesting is that both Apple and Facebook adopt a very particular conception of the internet that moves us away from the original conception of the internet as this kind of wide open space where you could travel anywhere, search any corner of the internet to come up with idiosyncratic, avant-garde ideas and so on. Both Apple and Facebook have, in their own ways, become successful by providing a very structured, staged, managed conception of the internet, where when you make use of Apple products or you go on Facebook, Apple and Facebook impose a particular structure within which users have to abide by. All right, so for instance, on Apple products like iPhones or iPods, you navigate the internet not just by going online and going anywhere, but you use particular apps that are provided by Apple that impose a certain structure on you in terms of the information that is made available to you. If you go on Facebook, for instance, there's a very kind of structured environment there that provides certain rules for the users in terms of where they can go online, what information can be posted, and from what sources, and so on. Now, what's interesting about all this is that I think there's a trade-off here between two competing principles. On the one hand, the original, internet provided this kind of commitment to openness, free expression, and diversity. All right, but with that came a certain degree of chaos and disorganization and anarchy. All right, you didn't know what you would find online. That principle of openness kind of coexists uneasily with a competing principle of convenience, all right, where apps provided by Apple provide us with a very kind of convenient online experience. All right, we know where we're going. Apple provides us with a kind of a structured environment for getting information for a specific purpose, and so on. And the authors argue that increasingly we're moving away from this original conception of a wide open, chaotic internet towards a more staged, managed conception of it. I guess the question is, in this process, are users ceding too much control to companies like Apple and Facebook to provide limits on our experience of the internet and where we can go and what ideas we can have access to? And again, this is just an open question for us to talk